Hey now, and how are you doing? Want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Today, we're going to bring my friend Kelly on, and we're going to talk about a lot of really good things and also about women's empowerment. Can't wait to talk to you about it. How are you doing today, Kelly?
Fantastic. Great to be here with you, David.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before we start diving in?
Absolutely. So I in Northern California, grew up in a small town, was I would say born and raised career-wise within the mortgage industry. I transitioned over to an executive role with GoodLeap, which is the largest solar financing company. We also do home improvement financing. So I've been part of scaling that organization into a multi-billion dollar company over the last 13 years. And I'm also at the same time co-founder of GoBundance Women, which is a membership community for ambitious female leaders that really want to, scale and grow without sacrificing other areas of their life. And I'm also a mom to two adults now, which is fantastic. They're both in college. That's definitely my favorite job. And then, just live a blessed life, to be honest, David, and happy to be sharing here with you today.
Yeah, no, me too. So it sounds like your youngest might have just started college recently.
Yeah, he was a freshman this last year.
Okay, same thing with my daughter. Yeah, so it becomes a completely different experience. And I said, at least with to my daughter, she came home a little more cooked than she went, and it was really nice. And it's nice to see her. It's only been a couple of weeks. It feels a
Yeah.
little longer, but
Yes.
it, it's nice to start to see her living in a cooked, a little bit more cooked, closer to adulthood
Yes.
world.
Yeah, the fruits of all that labor that we put in over 18 years, you really don't know what you did until they go off on their own.
Yeah, I was worried, and I don't know about your son. At the beginning of September, left her off for college, and he lives with me, so it was a little tough. And then September, she was like, "Dad, I just need to come home for the weekend," and
Yeah.
I was like, "Absolutely not." I knew I'd get her home, and that would be it. And then she
Yeah.
settled in, and she really got her stride in really well, and I'm really proud of her. So it's great. But I'd love it. So we're talking about women's empowerment, and I have a lot of women's empowerment stories in my life because I have two daughters, and at one point I had four daughters. I was in a house full of all these women, and the cats were all female. Man, I was just completely surrounded. So I really believe that we should empower. One of the biggest days of my life, May 11th, 2006, was my Phoenix Day, but I was in a women's empowerment conference. And
Mm.
at that time, I was going through a divorce, and I said, I need my girls to end up in a room like
Mm.
this, which was a high end room. And I guess, you know, having some abundance
Yeah.
of life and empowerment. But why don't you talk to us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah. To be honest, I think, it's not just about empowering women. I think it's just rewriting the rules of the way leadership
Mm.
works in the world
Oh,
today. I think we need more world positive leaders that come from a place of abundance and, being able to use a little bit more of our feminine energy, whether it's a man doing it or a woman doing it, is wildly important. The rules of leadership have to change. There's no doubt about that. When we look at 50% of the workforce is made up of women and we don't meet that same criteria when it comes to, C-suite leadership roles, board roles, et cetera, there's a reason for that. And it's not because we aren't qualified. I think the reason is that we just aren't able to do both because we haven't number one, I think we need to give up a lot of what we do at home and really ask our partners for what we need to be
sure.
able to do that. But we need more role models that can show like you can be an amazing mom and be an executive or a founder of a multi-million dollar company. You can be in great physical shape and be a leader. And so we really need to put more mentors out there for the younger generations, especially like for your daughters, for them to know you can have it all. Like you can, you know.
Yeah, no, and that's what I agree with. So I make sure that they see how supportive I am of women's issues. And coming from a Jewish faith, we always had the for LBGT on our Seder plate. We have the orange, which is a new wave to respect that. Even though
Yeah.
we also have Miriam's Cup, where it's a women's empowerment thing. And we made sure that people always remembered that, because as real, I go, real men really are comfortable. I'm comfortable. People laugh at me every now and then. I'll wear a pink shirt and they'll be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay," or I'll wear my teal my teal glasses, and it looks, they're not sure, and they go, and I go, "Does it matter?" And then that, which in some languages then say, "Oh, you are, you're in that community," and I'm not, but it doesn't matter, right? It
Right.
shouldn't matter. But if I'm comfortable to then support somebody, because and their body doesn't have to be perfect, right? So all of
Yeah.
our bodies, we need to be healthy, and that's what it is, both mentally and physically. And I think that's what we need to communicate to the universe, but also
Yeah.
in our societies when we show up.
For sure. And I just think, there's so many things that are said to women. And this isn't like the one thing that I won't ever be is a victim to circumstances. I'm a creator. I want to make and create change within the leadership world. When people say, well, like, how do you do it all? Does anyone ever ask their male counterpart that? They don't, because we're thinking about so many things simultaneously that need to be going on. So as I'm dealing with work stuff, I'm also thinking about, do I need to take the dog to the vet? And do I need to do this? And do I need to do that? Like, there's a lot of things that just need to shift in order for us to know that we can go for those higher level roles or start our own companies or do other things and not have to sacrifice anything. And I think a lot of it, just when you look at the greatest challenges facing female leaders, one of the top ones is work-life balance. It's like, we just need to remember, like, believe in infinite possibilities. It's part of the mindset. Like, create a world in which you can do it all, and you will have it all. And so that's definitely what I'm most passionate about, is just teaching people that you have to have the confidence and the worth to know, like, I can ask for what I need. I can design my life. I don't have to subscribe to the old rules that have existed for years, which are all about, productivity and efficiency. Those are important, but, there's also other things that are more important.
And there's a blend. So again, when you said work-life balance, we all have to do that. So
Hmm.
it's not acceptable anymore in today's society to do all or none. And that's where we finding that right balance. I just ended a 30-year career in corporate America, and the company I worked for really did mention a lot about work-life balance. And
Yeah.
not everybody worked that way, but I know with my supervisor at that time, that was completely supported. If I said I was, I had to do something for my kids, that I just had a conversation
Yeah.
about that earlier. I was one of the few dads when the kids were in elementary school who regularly raised their hand to be part of the class. I wasn't a class parent or a class mom, but I did go to a lot of the class trips because they couldn't have another dad. They always opened it
That's
up,
awesome.
and until at times, because I had done it several times, they were like, "Well, somebody else wants to do it." I was like, "Of course." I'm not saying I have to be
Yeah.
the guy. There's more than enough people. We want more people to stand up and lead, but also show our kids what we need to do. When we need to work,
Yeah.
I need to work. When I need
Yep.
to be with you, I want to be with you. I choose to be with you because you're the most important thing. I'm doing this really
Yeah.
for you, and that's what I'm teaching my kids now, the girls now, and it's huge.
That's priceless. At GoodLeap, my CEO was raised by a single mom, and she works at our company, and it's pulled through in everything that we do, just the promotion of women and making sure that they have access to do the things that they love. Because at the end of the day, if we don't prioritize family, then what is this all for? And I think it's just an important part of it, that it's acceptable. It's acceptable that we really live life along with what our true priorities are, which should be our physical and emotional well-being and our families.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because if you're not right for yourself, and that's one of the challenges that I faced. I was pushing so hard on every other level, and I have to say, I did make mistakes on not always prioritizing my family
Yeah.
because I was trying to bring in the right resources to the
Right.
family, and I was like, well, they're fine. They're being taken care of. They will always never left alone. They were always supported in the big ways, but in the small ways, was I successful all the time? No. And that's the part that now I feel I am very successful. I make
That's
sure that
awesome.
I create the safe space. We learn. Sometimes we're not, again, as parents or as adults, we only know what we've seen. And we might want to change it, but we don't always know how to change it.
Yeah.
What would be something that you would suggest either for a woman or a man
Yeah.
become more aware of to
Yeah.
being able to have that type of conversation with themselves or their partner?
Yeah. So, I mean, timely that you just asked me this. I've just spent several hours preparing for a conscious parenting talk that I'm having in June. And it goes through every part of our life. It's just waking up to becoming more conscious. And when you're conscious, you have that self-awareness that I'm not perfect and I have an opportunity to grow in every area of my life. That comes from how I take care of my self-care. When you're really conscious that your physical and emotional well-being create abundance. When people say it's an abundance mindset, that sounds like something you possess. And the way that I coach to it, it's something that you practice. An abundance mindset is
100%.
something that you practice. And if you don't have energy, if you don't have emotional tolerance, which comes from taking care of self and doing things that you love, you certainly aren't going to experience life at the same level. And so bringing that thread of consciousness into also raising our children, the old paradigm of how we raise kids with obedience and respect and whatnot, it's just not going to work for this generation. They have access to a lot more. And we really do need to start to be a lot more conscious that, the challenges that we face as adults can be minimized. They can be minimized by the
Cool.
way that we show up for our kids and teach them about feelings, teach them about emotional intelligence. You hear so many parents talk about like that push to get them into college or all these other things. And it's like, yes, college can be important, but more important is that emotional intelligence, that empathy that they bring into the world, that desire to leave a positive impact instead of work for a company that's actually destroying the environment or destroying, physical health or emotional health, all of those things that we see today, because we need more thought leaders to say, you know what? Yes, you can make a lot of money selling that or doing that, but what is the unintended consequence? The devices are so addictive, the food's so addictive. Like we really are, unfortunately being led in the wrong direction. And I think consciousness is going to be what really wakes us up to this.
100%. So I would like to ask you about what's the definition. We use these words today, and all of a sudden it becomes very vanilla, very like
Yeah.
everybody uses it. It's a catchphrase. What does emotional intelligence mean to you?
Yeah, emotional intelligence to me is really that you possess that self-awareness of what your strengths, weaknesses are, of what your, I would say your trauma, your wounds are, and how it
Mm,
could potentially show up in your life, how you manage your emotional triggers, how, you practice acceptance and non-judgment, have empathy, really just be in this place of knowing yourself and how you show up. It also, on the flip side, is understanding and having the self-awareness or the awareness of how you're showing up. Like, what do you bring to the table? How do I communicate more effectively with you and be able to, like, if I'm a leader, how do I get the most out of our relationship so that we can both mutually benefit, so that you can feel like you're progressing and growing, and the company, of course, is going to benefit from that as well.
exactly. I mean, you really level up. I mean, to go back a little further, I didn't know that I had to love myself. One of my stories that I talk about regularly, I was asked that question in one of my darkest periods. And since then, I've used that. One, I always have to love myself and take self care. Uh, and knowing now as an emotionally intelligent leader, what I need to do is take care of myself first,
Yeah.
right? It should have been the simplest answer, but we don't. We as a
Yeah.
parent, as an adult, right? Where it's hard. I mean, you and I are you're younger than I am, but the answer is that a lot of people we were taught in that age just push, and
Yeah.
that's not really the right way to do it in today's society. What are some resources you use when you need to take a break?
Oh, when I need to take a break, first of all, what I would say is that one of the greatest tools that I have used on myself and with others is really kind of doing an abundance audit and recognizing what my human capacity for greatness is. You know, we all have that limitation of like how much we can take or how much we can work or how long we can focus, and really just understanding what my human capacity is. So in reality, I really don't have to take breaks. Breaks become adventure and fun instead of I burn out and I have to take a break. So, few things that I do just to make sure that I preserve that. Having a morning ritual. If you do not have a morning ritual and you're listening, one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself is really just to put that anchor in this commitment to yourself, that my physical and emotional well-being are at the top of the priority list. So I'm faith-based, you know, I'm going to read my devotional every day. I'm going to look at my goals. I'm going to journal. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to work out. I'm going to make sure that I feed my mind really good information on things that I'm working on before my day gets started. And then this abundance audit is really looking at everything that you do and giving it a positive or a negative. We spend so much time doing things that we don't love. And I just see life is too short. Like just try to maybe delegate those things, let go of those things. We do a lot of things that really maybe we don't even need to do. As simple as like, do you love going to the grocery store? I don't. So I'm on, you know, I get my Instacart every day, something I can easily take care of without having to step foot in a grocery store. And so when I do want to take a break, which at the end of the day is always, you know, I would say taking baths for me is like, it literally just washes away whatever I'm carrying. I've just convinced myself of that mentally, and that's been that way for over 20 years. And then getting out into nature, you know, going on the boat
Mm.
with my sweetheart, Kent, or going to the ocean, you know, being around water, being in the mountains, really just, you know, being in that place of just appreciation for how abundant, you know, nature is in our lives.
100%. You always have to ground yourself. I mean, that's why people always talk to me about my teal suit, the teals. And I'm like, well, it's really about the grounding. And once we can
Yes.
ground ourselves and center ourselves, either through devotionals or just meditation or reading something that's going to be positive for you, we have to feed ourselves. When we feed ourselves early in the day, it just grows. It continues to grow. It's an energy. You know, and that's why I go, it's not good or bad. I say, well, it's good, or we're going to learn a lesson from it.
Yeah.
Let's figure out
One
what
or
that
the
lesson
other.
is, and having that ability. And if it doesn't feel right for us, how we move through those things then lead in our lives and our communities.
Absolutely. And as a leader, as someone of influence, whether you're a parent or run a company or, you know, whatever it is that you do, people are always watching. And the truth is, people don't follow victims. They don't. They just don't. As much as you might connect with somebody over complaining, they're never going to see you as the authority in whatever it is, because I mean, we just know the difference. We know when somebody's radiating at that higher level. And those are the types of people that influence at the highest level, are the ones that truly can navigate, you know, muddy waters and still have that optimistic outlook and whatnot.
Right. It's how you overcome. That's where I talk about the Phoenix idea, the Phoenix influencer
Oh,
coming out of
yeah.
the ashes. And so, how do you come out of the ashes? Right. Everything's not sunshine and roses or unicorns every day.
Yeah, well, it's been a long journey, I'd say. You
Sure, of
know, I
course.
think when you decide for yourself that you want to have emotional mastery in your life, that over time you really learn strategies to manage emotional triggers while you're healing some of those deeper things simultaneously. So
Mm.
I'm grateful at a point now that, you know, I can officially say I own my joy. You know, I
Mm.
can still go through challenging times while owning my joy. There's never a moment that I don't believe everything's always working out okay for me. But what I would say is I kind of know for myself, the one thing I don't do is complain. The one thing that I don't do is gossip. So if I'm struggling and I'm at the bottom and there's something that's really going on, you know, it's kind of one of those processes that I go through with myself, that it is all about self-reflection. It's just, how did I get here? what clarity can I get from the way that I feel today? And what preference do I need to let go of so that I don't repeat the same cycle again? Because for most of us, when we hit bottom, it's the same similar things over and over, whether it's rejection or, a challenge at work or challenge with our kids and, whatever those states are that happen. And so for myself, I don't get to states, the dark states. I might have emotional triggers that are skew more negative, but I
Sure.
kind of practice a 4-part emotional, a trigger management plan that I created years ago, and I still run it to this day. And I just stop and ask myself questions about what I'm feeling. And most of the time, going for a walk or listening to my favorite Bruno Mars song, like literally I've trained myself, like I can snap out of it pretty quickly today.
Yeah, no, that's the powerful part is when you're able to do that. But that's part of that growth and that emotional intelligence is acknowledging why you're feeling that you're feeling something, and then also look at why are you feeling that way.
Yeah.
No, right? Why is it, one of the biggest questions we can ask ourselves, and also one of the most powerful things we can do for ourselves. Because if you know
Yeah.
why you're upset, if you understand those triggers, that doesn't mean that the situation is going to
Yeah.
change, but how we can work through even the most difficult of situations. There's a different way to manage it and move forward.
Yeah. And the one thing, David, that I really kind of got into probably about 15 years ago was just the neuroscience behind emotion. And
Mm,
so now, really being able to see what's going on in my brain, because in my heart, I always know everything's going to work out. But my brain, given it's wired for
yep.
danger, and it's going to give me just as much dopamine for feeling like a victim as it is for feeling like a success, that I can really start to see my brain ruminate. I can see myself go into this place, and I have tools that I really use to stop it today so that I don't let my amygdala get hijacked and take me on a pity party vacation that lasts for several days.
All right, now you piqued my interest. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the neuroscience that you've found? Because I also the work that I do also dives into
Yeah.
the amygdala and stuff like that. So why don't you share with us what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just for myself personally, it just started with being really wildly fascinated with both sides of our brain. And it happened because my mom had a very rare form of dementia called semantic dementia, and her left hemisphere of her brain pretty
Yeah.
much just died, yet she was still functioning and there was still a lot of things that she was able to do. And so really just understanding the difference between right and left brain, and wanting to lead from a place of feminine energy, wanting to lead from this place of being rather than just doing, is what kind of got me into it initially. And then just really being able to see, through, my sister has mental illness,
Sure.
and being able to understand what was going on in her brain. So Dr. Amen is probably the one that kind of
Yeah.
got me most obsessed. And I've referred so many people over to him. So grateful for his work there at the Amen Clinic, and really just understanding like what happens when we feel like we're in danger, what happens in those critical moments that we may feel a certain way, like what is the emotional response system doing, why do we get hijacked, and how do we become more powerful so that those things don't devastate our loved ones and work relationships and other things. And so I've been able to help other people with managing triggers and managing overthinking on a subtle way, and then also do some deeper healing with people that need to go back and capture those subconscious beliefs or memories that are lodged
Sure.
in there through
Yeah,
meditation.
no, yeah, no, I definitely understand that because that's one of the techniques that I use. It deals with the amygdala and reducing the AMPA receptors that are attached to the amygdala
Yeah.
and it's so interesting. I actually spoke at a conference with Doc. Well, I spoke to Doctor. But I also was at a conference where I spoke separately. But that's the
Awesome.
interesting part that we learn how to I go optimize. There's people when I was first started saying you're rewiring your brain, they get scared.
Yeah.
And while it is, and it's good to rewire because the challenge with our brains, it summarizes. That's why it can make so many decisions. It summarizes, much
Yeah,
like our computers. If you have a lot of tabs open, it's going to summarize to do something really quickly. Chat
yep,
GPT summarizes. It's vanilla. Doesn't always good. It can give us some of the answers, but not all the answers. But we need to dive deeper into those things. And that's exactly the
absolutely.
power.
Well, and really when you look at it, like there is true suffering out there, right? There are
Sure.
people that are born into situations that that they go through true suffering. And then you have this whole other sector of the population that is really self-suffering. They've created suffering because their brain runs the show. They haven't quite awakened to this idea that they have a lot more power than what their brain is. And so that's the segment that I really love to help most really those business owners too, those female business owners that might feel like they're stuck or they can't grow because they're going to have to do more, and teaching them the skills and supporting them with this mastermind that are really going to be able to help them get to the next level without feeling, like they're going to lose their marbles, because a lot of them are about 1 millimeter away from a breakdown.
100%. I mean, that's how I came to finding this, is basically
Yeah.
through a breakdown. And then I started learning some of these techniques, and I was like, whoa, I got to dive into this.
Yeah.
And that's really what happens is, when you say triggers, I used to have a trigger that if you pointed at me, because my dad had done it,
Oh,
for so many years, I didn't know that was a trigger. And then once I was able to identify it, talking to some close friends, and they're like, yeah, we knew not to do that to you. I'm like, well,
yeah.
I wish somebody would have told me. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying I made it easy. But now at this point, I want people to tell me about triggers or what they're observing, because
Right.
our biggest challenge also is when we're observing, we always observe ourselves, or often at the highest good. You know what your intentions are. Your
Yes.
words might not be correct. And when we hear from somebody else, we always think that when you're coming from a place of trauma, you feel that you're being attacked. And once you're able
Yeah.
to clean that filter, what I call the love filter, you're then able to then hear, well, maybe that's not exactly what you're saying. And
Absolutely.
maybe I'm not saying it in the most efficient way to have you hear what I mean versus what
Right.
I'm saying.
Right. Right. There's no classes in school on emotional dysregulation. There's no
Yeah.
classes on school on these things. It's like you get put in a naughty corner or just whatnot, but never really understand how to navigate the feelings. And some people have such a range of feelings that, it does result in a lot of suffering. And it's really just making a decision that, I've got to own it. I'm the creator of my own experience. I'm going to have to learn what I believe is one of the greatest superpowers that you can possess, which is asking for help, really coming out of isolation and being in a place where it's like for you sharing, right? You could have not told anybody that you had a breakdown. You could have not told anybody that you were struggling with these things, but instead, I think you're doing the ultimate, which is now you're sharing, and it's probably helping hold you even higher to a higher level of accountability, because you're telling yourself every single day these things. And like people ask me all the time, like, how do you have such an abundance mindset? It's like, well, I've been talking about it for 15 years. Like I listen to myself talk every day that I'm speaking or sharing with the teams or whatnot. It just drives it deeper and deeper. And over time just clears out, some of those old faulty beliefs that got lodged in there.
For sure. And I'd love you to talk to us a little bit about that abundance mindset, because a lot of people go, well, I'm sitting there in abundance and I still haven't won the lotto. I
Yeah.
believe I'm holding the ticket. I can visualize it, which is great. But abundance is a little bit more than that. It's much like prayer. I say, God will give you what you're asking for, but you got to meet him halfway, or her
For
halfway.
sure.
And could you explain what your
Yeah.
definition of abundance is?
Yeah, absolutely. Abundance is really just the way that you're experiencing life, feeling like you have more than enough resources, whether that's love, time, money, education, skills, etc. And so when you really look at abundance, it doesn't have anything necessarily to do with what you possess. It's the way in which you feel. So it is 100% about that. And when you talk about like winning the lotto, one of the biggest missing pieces with that law of manifestation is it has to go hand in hand with the law of action. And really, buying a lotto ticket's not really action. Let's be honest, right? There are some lucky people out there, but at the same time, where most of us are going to create the highest levels of wealth is when we put in the energy and effort towards up leveling, different degrees of mastery. And that's always what I tell people. Like, if you want to get to the highest levels of abundance, then you've got to put mastery in place. And that means up leveling your vocabulary. That means up leveling the way that you communicate, your emotional intelligence skills, how to network masterfully, how to speak and share and influence with other people at a higher level, because that's going to attract in that next level of abundance for you. So for myself, the abundance mindset is really the navigation, like the set of beliefs that help me navigate life. So, challenges are opportunities. I believe in infinite possibilities. I, like, am flexible and adaptable. And for those people that are like super type A, when I say be flexible and adaptable, they're like, ooh, they want their control. In abundance, you let go of the control. You let go of the preferences. You let go of the judgment for other people. You want to talk about, if you want to raise the most amazing conscious children known to man, be radically accepting of them and non-judgmental, and they will flourish before your eyes. Like, for most people have been overlaying their own ideas of how their kids should be since their kids are little, and so there's so many different ways to be in abundance. But the greatest part that I would say, like when it comes to money, is just seeing money as just this energy that, can create the lifestyle that you want. It's nothing to possess. It's something that, you've got to treat with abundance. And for me, I need to contribute 10% of what I earn. I need to play with a certain percentage of what I earn, so that I'm not just working too hard for something all of the time.
100%. I agree. And that's what we talk about, is you have to meet it halfway. The universe will meet you where you want to be, and sometimes multiply it, because it knows greater than you with your intentions.
Yes.
If your intentions are pure, and that's where people go, well, but I need the money. I'm like, yes, it's an energy that you need to do certain things, but and what are you doing with it? That's why I'm so passionate about my charity, my philanthropic endeavors. I'm just equally as passionate. And people are like, how can you be doing all these things? Just how I manage my time is
I
like
love
a day,
it.
like when I block out time to be like, okay, one call for today. I'm allowed one business call, and then other than that, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do that feeds my soul.
That's amazing. And that's really the secret, is that, when you believe in the recipes and rituals that you do, and you remove the guilt and the doubt and the fear and all the other subconscious, blocks that we all run around with, that's where we truly do magnetize ourselves for this abundant life that we're all destined for. But I'll tell you, like, you touched on something about the love yourself piece. you know I fully believe that one of these aspects of abundance is really owning your worthiness and knowing it's your birthright, knowing and feeling in your bones like you are a masterpiece, so different than everyone else. But we're just in this world of comparison. We're in this world of like, well, they're here, or they're there. It's not fair. All of these other, for me, I kind of say ridiculous beliefs that aren't going to get you any farther. It's like, when you ignite that passion inside of you and you make what you're doing world positive, I will tell you right now, for the people that are running companies that are destroying people's health or emotional well-being or the environment or any of these other things, you will never get to the level that you do if you recalibrate and make your business world positive. For us at GoodLeap, it's all about sustainability. We only finance green energy products. And in return, we invest in our nonprofit. I just got an update today, 1 million people today and every day have clean water because of our water desalination plants. We've created this continuum of giving back and whatnot, just to make sure that as we grow, we make the world a better place. And when you make that commitment, like you said, the universe is going to be right there to reward you.
100%. Well, could you share a little bit more about your not-for-profit? Because one of the things, my not-for-profit, Goons for Good, we're always looking to support and see
Yeah,
what we can do. Because that's what we
absolutely.
do. Our goal is to support other 501c3s in the
Love it.
7 missions that we have, which is sustainability is
That's
one of those
perfect.
missions.
Yeah, so givepower.org is an organization. We've put solar in, so many different schools, hospitals, areas all over the world. So we'll find areas. So for example, we've got a trek. Go Abundance Women actually sponsored a trek going in July to Colombia. They'll go into
Mm.
a village that's never had power before and light that village up so that they're going to have access to power now. We also created water desalination plants that are solar powered. And then we hire, entrepreneurs in the village. We try to hire as many women to be able to distribute that clean water as well. And like I said, over 1 million people today, have done that. We're fortunate. Like if you want to check it out, one of Mr. Beast, his philanthropy, went on one of those treks with Give Power and just did a fantastic job. One of the greatest, highest viewed videos out there on YouTube on his philanthropy site. And it's just been an amazing thing because today now, when I wake up and I have my tea or my water and I'm at work and I'm making an impact, I get to remember, that kind of, the longer benefit that we're making in the world for what we do today.
That's the biggest value that we are, because generally, statistically, we're forgotten about individuals, 2 or 3 generations, but the impact we leave on this planet was that much more by teaching our kids as we started this episode, but also how we change the environment, our communities, or the larger communities when you're able to do that, when you're able to have that larger reach.
Absolutely.
Okay. I know we're about 40 minutes in, or about definitely over a half hour, and I just want to be respectful of your time. But as we start wrapping it up, I'd love you to walk into our magic garden, and would you plant one more seed of knowledge? Because you've already given us so much, and I want
Yeah.
to thank you for that. But if we could have one more seed, either a repeat of something that you've mentioned or anything else that you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, definitely. I think for all of us, starting with instead of just starting with goals, starting with a vision for how you want to feel is going to be really impactful. And then creating goals around that, because so often we get lost in that dopamine filled world of achievement, and then we don't feel any different. So I would recommend that you start with a vision for how you want to feel and then create some goals around it. Another important part of that is identifying, your preferred methods of self-sabotage. That's the area of expertise that I typically speak a lot on, and is helping people see, like, what are those top ways that we sabotage ourselves, and how do we create a plan in order to be able to, overcome those things. The first thing I'd say, and I speak to female leaders about this all the time, like, we need to do a better job articulating our needs and asking for help. Like, there's a reason why we don't get the raises at the same level. It's because we aren't asking. We need to be more articulate. We need to start asking for help a lot more, and knowing we don't have to do it alone. We don't have to carry the weight of the world. Have a talk with your partner. Like, I get it. I've always done this, but we need to partner on this so that I can free up a little bit of my energy to, enjoy a little bit more or whatnot. And just, identify those top ways that you sabotage yourself and then create a plan for it. And the cool thing is I do have a pretty cool gift for your listeners, where I've got a 3-part series at www.downloadthepod.com that they can learn, the top ways to overcome, the top 3 ways that leaders sabotage their own success.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. And how can they contact you? Where would be a great place to contact you as well?
Absolutely. The best thing again is just to go to downloadthepod.com. It will get you in contact with me. But, running a mastermind community for high achieving women, of course, is just something that I believe more of us need to engage in. You know, when they say that you're as successful as the 5 closest people to you, I think we do need to be more intentional about creating that network. So you can always check out goabundancewomen.com as well, apply there, or again, just check out that downloadthepod.com series and you'll be able to get in touch with me there.
Wow. Thank you so much for this opportunity and so much knowledge. I can't wait to re-listen to this episode because there's so many different things that need to be unpacked or heard again. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, David, and congrats on your nonprofit and making that breakthrough. It sounds like you've had in your life.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely been a complete shift in so many different ways.
Awesome. Thank you.
And everybody else, as always, we wish you peace and love in your life. And when you're bringing that back, bring that awesome thought and be authentic today. Hit your sweet spot and have a great day.